Hello everybody out there, and welcome to CJ's Drop on Life today. Today I got kind of a video that I thought about the other day about doing. And it's about people in your life that really are not related to you, but you are connected to in some way, shape, or form. That they were in your life a lot. And then through some circumstances you lost track of that person and you hadn't seen them in a while. And just unforeseen circumstances happened that kind of separated you in some shape or form. And that person happened to be my godmother. This woman, whose name was Olga, she was from Greece, and very nice lady. She met my dad back in the 50s. They worked at a paper mill together, and they bonded a close friendship. She was a lot older than my dad. I mean, she was like a good 20, 30, well, about 20, 30 years older than my father. And when I was born, I was baptized, and she became, of course, my godmother, like I said, and I had a godfather also, but I never knew him, and never met him even. And but Olga, my godmother, she became like really a influential part of my life. She just taught me a lot of things that I didn't learn anyplace else. I would go spend the summer with her at her house, and I'd spend, I don't know, 3-4 weeks there at the house with her, and she taught me to be things that people didn't teach me, like how to be frugal. We would go out, she goes, okay, we're going to go out today. And I'm like, okay, where are we going? She goes, oh, we're going to go around to knock on doors and collect phone books. Now, this was back in the 70s when they had phone books. Of course, they don't have phone books now. I was, 75, 76 probably it was. And we used to go knock on people's doors, and phone books were really thick back then, and they weighed a lot. Especially in a bigger city, you could get a really thick phone book that was 6, 7, 8 inches thick. And it weighed a lot of money, weighed a lot. And we would take those to the recycling place, and we would go to houses like crazy and say, you got your own phone book you want to get rid of? Because they had their new ones, and a lot of people just left them laying around, and we would go there and get their phone books. And by the end of it all, we'd have a trunk load and car load, back seat full of nothing but phone books. So we would take these down to the recycling center and get paid so much a pound, for paperweight on that. And I don't know if it was a lot, I don't know, but she would buy me things. Like at one time I wanted a beanbag chair. For going out and helping her, she bought me a beanbag chair. Those were really popular back in the 70s. And it was things like that she taught me that were just amazing things in my life. And I would spend the summers where, like I said, 3-4 weeks, and I would do this for, I don't know, 5-6 years I did it for. And even when I didn't do it, she'd come to our house and visit with us, and it was just, she was a big part of my life. She wasn't related to me, and she was a nice lady, and she always tried to sing. She couldn't sing a note. She was always off key, and she was always trying to cook me something to eat. She'd call me her baby boy, and she was going to cook me something to eat. She'd sing that to me. I'd say, oh my God, because she wasn't that great of a cook, but I had to be nice and eat her food. So I would eat her food, and, when she wasn't looking, I'd kind of throw some away. But, she was a big part of my life, and I lost contact with her. Like, I was saying earlier, and maybe you've ran across this yourself, to where someone's been very influential in your life and taught you a lot of things, and you just kind of lost track of them. Well, the other day, it was about 3 weeks ago, I thought about her. I think about her all the time. But I thought, me and my wife were sitting in a restaurant, and I was thinking about Olga, and I said, I wonder what ever happened to Olga, to my wife, because it was so funny. When we were first dating, I took her over to go see Olga. I'll tell you this brief story, then I'll get back to what I was saying. But I took her over to go see Olga, and Olga would, of course, speak fluent Greek, and she talked really loud. She had a really loud voice when she talked. And she was on the phone with one of her friends that was also Greek. and she was talking really loud. We walk up to her house. She had all these cats. She had a lot of cats. She had a couple dogs, but she had a lot of cats. And she, you know, she wasn't the cleanest of person. You could almost like walk up to her house and kind of smell cat, you know. But anyways, we were walking up to her house, and we got to her back door, and she was speaking really loud in Greek, and my wife kind of just was taken back, like, oh my God, what's that? Just scared her, you know. I said, that's Isoga. You know, she talks loud, and she goes, okay, and she came out. She seen I was there, and she goes, oh my gosh, my baby boy. Of course, I wasn't a baby. I was 27, 28 years old, you know. And she come running out, gave me a big hug, and, you know, she was talking in Greek and stuff, and my wife was just taken back. I said, this is my wife, or my girlfriend. Well, I don't know if we were married at that time. I think we were married, actually, to tell you the truth. And introduced her to her, you know, and she says, anybody that likes my baby boy, I like too, you know. And she was just totally, you know, taken back. But anyways, to go on, that's what type of person she was. If you were around me, she thought you were a good person and everything else. And of course, I tried to be a good person. Wasn't always. She didn't know that much about me, but I was not, you know, as I got older, I was still a good person. I'm not saying I was a bad person, but anyways, so I was sitting in a restaurant with my wife, and I said, I wonder what ever happened to Olga. And I knew that I had tried to visit her one time later on in life. And I went there by myself, and I knocked at her door where she used to live at, and there was a lady there taking care of her, and she was also from Greece, and she was, you know, of course, Greek, like I said. And she didn't know me, and she didn't want to let me inside the house. And I said, well, I've known Olga for years. I'm her godson. She's my godmother. She finally let me inside the house, and by this time she had dementia that's kind of set in, and, you know, she didn't recognize me, which was very off, you know, and I knew something was wrong right away. And she kept on thinking that I was my dad. She said, Claude, hi. She knew my dad's name, you know, and everything else. She goes, how have you been? I have not seen you in years, you know, what have you been doing? And, you know, this whole time she thought I was my dad. And it was very sad. I had to cut it short because I was almost in tears, you know, that she didn't recognize who I was, and it was very, very hard for me to wrap my head around. So going back to restaurant, I was kind of, so I looked her up on the phone. I thought, you know, God, she would have to be over 100 years old by now. And so I looked it up, and I found her obituary right away. I mean, it was really weird. I just, boom, come right up. And which I didn't think it was going to because of her name and the spelling of her last name. I wasn't sure if I had it right. But anyways, it came right up. And of course, she got admitted to a nursing home. And she died the same year my mother did in 2022. And she was 104 years old. 104. Unreal. And I remember going to that nursing home and try to visit her. Of course, she was really bad at that point in time. She had no idea who anybody was. She was, you know, walking around the halls with hardly any clothes on, and they had to attend to her quite a bit and take care of her quite a bit. But she saved all of her money. This woman was an amazing woman, and I'll never forget her. She had bought a house, and she never got married. And she bought a house, and she had paid that house off in like 5 years. Just by how frugal she was. She would go out and she'd work, and then when she wasn't working and she had to retire, she would still go out and do things like the telephone book thing, like different things like that, and just make money. So that just goes to show you that you just got to be persistent and willing enough to go out there and do things and work for things, and they will come your way eventually. But she had that house paid off in 5 years, always had a nice car, and she never depended on anybody but herself. I mean, that was a life lesson to me. You know, and I had an uncle the same way. He was quite the character also, and he was a big part of my life. Between the both of them, I was very frugal. He was part of the Purple Gang in Detroit. And I don't know if you know what the Purple Gang is, but they worked a lot with the mob. And he used to run liquor for them, halfway to Chicago during Prohibition. And the stories I heard from him were just amazing. I loved old people when I was a kid. I just learned so much from them. It was always learn something from them. If you're a younger person watching this, listen to some old people. We're not all dumb, okay? A lot of them have life lessons that they can explain to you and teach you things. These two people in my life did, but Olga, I remember my uncle, he died, and he was in his 90s when he died, but he had the same thing, dementia, and a terrible thing, just like my mom, she had dementia and died of that also. But this woman, Olga, was an amazing, amazing woman, and I will never, ever forget her, and I regret ever losing touch with her. I mean, to a certain point, I lost touch with her, and I tried to get back in touch with her, and I did, but it was too late. So if you have people in your life that are close to you, stay in contact with them and stay close to them, because someday you're going to regret not having them around. But she was 104 years old when she passed on. Amazing. So take that for what it is, and hold these people close to you, because someday you're going to think back and you're going to remember all the times you had with them, and it's going to bring a smile to your face, like, why did we go out and collect phone books for? But we did, and it was a life lesson, and we did crazy things like that just to make money, you know, and she would teach me all these things. So, all right, just reminiscing today, and I hope you got something out of this, and I hope you enjoyed it. So again, peace, and take care, everybody. Get out and talk to somebody. You never know who you're going to meet, and you never know whose day you're going to make just by saying hi to them. Could be an old person that doesn't have anybody to talk to in life, and by you saying hi to them, made their whole day. And be judgmental free at the same time. Thank you, everybody. You have a great day. Catch you later.